This is the painting I just started, and I have an acrylic undercoating on this. And I've reworked the composition a couple times, and I was happy with this. So I started to work in the oil paint, and I'm just showing you some techniques of what I do and how I do it. A lot of times I'll turn the brush rather than keep it straight. You'll notice I do that in a lot of times when I'm working. I move the brush, especially in my floral paintings, so it gives a feeling of movement. I'm using light colors against dark there just to get an idea for foreground and background. This composition actually came from a photograph that I was working from. I actually had gotten underneath the flowers in the garden and was looking kind of up at the sky, and I liked the way that it sort of looked like that. It sort of looked like you were falling into the flowers. This bottom left corner is not finished. That's just an acrylic undercoating there. And you notice that I always have a paper towel in my left hand. I'm constantly wiping that paint off there because I want to do, see, I'm showing you that now, but I keep that in my left hand and I constantly wipe it underneath the palette. In this one, I actually redid my entire palette because I wanted to start kind of with a fresh one and make it a little bit easier on myself. I put dark colors on one side and the light colors on the other and put the middle as the middle values that I could mix together. So this is the part I'm working on right now. That little middle section is still, I've got an acrylic underneath it, and I've decided to go with green there. And I'm using highlights, starting with the darker colors, and then I'm gonna do some highlights in there afterwards. Okay. Notice I'm moving the brush again. I'm kind of twirling it in my hand, rolling it a little bit, and it can kind of get some of that paint off there. And I did that technique years ago, and I really liked it. And I kind of moved from left to right. I started with the upper left corner and then kind of worked my way down. Now I'm doing that. I like that teal blue, and I've shown a couple times, I show in the image the R&F pigment sticks that I'm using and the paint. So I'll put those directly on the canvas and then work the paint in with that. And I really like you'll notice a little bit later on in the video, I'm taking that same paper towel and kind of wiping paint off so that it gives sort of this positive negative effect of texture and it's not all solid. When you really look at my paintings up close, you can see so many different values. And because I usually do a pretty detailed underpainting, so I know where I'm going with it. I moved my turpentine out of the way. So many times I drop my brushes. You know, I'll hit it with my hand and the turpentine goes all over the floor, which is really not a lot of fun to clean up. So I constantly move them if I think they're going to be in the way. Now I started working a little technique with highlighting. And this is kind of the fun part because now the regular blocking in is sort of done. And I'm doing some highlighting work, which you get to play a little bit more. It's not just putting color on, it's sort of playing and finding out what works and what doesn't. Notice nothing is solid. Even in those reds, see, I'm kind of turning the paintbrush like that. That's one of the things I love to do. It's just, there's something that kind of frees your mind, and it's very relaxing. And there's my other holder is my mouth, which really I should not do because you got all kinds of poisonous chemicals on there, but hey. Anyway, yeah, this is kind of my favorite part of painting, which is the just sort of detailed twirling motion. And now I put that line on and now I just kind of pull it down so it doesn't look so solid. And I always wear gloves when I'm painting because I really don't like the feel of the oil on my hands, but it's also not a great thing in your skin. And I noticed that middle section's not done, so I got to go back to that. I'm just going to kind of block that in. I don't really know what I'm doing. At this point, I'm getting a little more detailed, but you know, through the whole thing, I didn't worry too much because I'm going to go back. This is kind of the final phase of painting where you go back and you can do details. Now, I don't show it in this video, but I constantly get up. I get up about every probably 6 or 7 minutes and go back, you know, about maybe 10 feet and take a look at what I'm doing, because it's hard when you're sitting right by the easel to kind of figure that out. So you need to step back, and I'm just doing some highlights there and see what's working and what's not working. And the first thing that usually comes to mind is my mind will say, there's one spot that's jumping out at me. It's just, so I usually, and I'm looking at this painting now and I'm seeing something that I need to work on. I'm not done with this. Even at the end of this video, I'm not done with that. I'm just kind of showing you where I'm going with adding color at this point. And I use a lot of different size brushes when I'm painting. I like different size brushes because I like to use different styles of brushes too. It gives different, a different feel of paint on the painting. I'm just kind of adding and putting darks and lights against each other. Poppies are one of my favorite flowers to paint. I kind of like the loose feel that you can have when you're working with them. I'm just kind of adding some light in there. And I don't want to put any real solid lines down. The thing with oil painting is I think it's very forgiving. I don't feel like anything's ever set in stone. I can go back to it. And I don't feel that way about watercolor. Watercolor is, to me, is much harder. I give all those watercolor painters out there a big high five. I'm kind of just going back now and seeing what's working and what's not working, what's grabbing my eye, what's pulling me back. I've probably gotten up a couple times and gone back to see what I like and what I don't like. I didn't like that corner because I thought it was too solid. I always want to have a feeling of movement in my paintings. So you can see I'm just kind of going back now and putting some highlights in, putting some dark spots in, and really making a lot more contrast in the painting. I'm not getting too worried about how things are going to go now. I like that kind of ethereal feel when I'm painting with darks against lights, because you can make it feel like it's kind of floating in there. I didn't like that corner. Making that a little darker on the very bottom. I usually want the bottom of my paintings to feel heavier than the top, so you feel like you could kind of float out of them. I love those blues. I think at some point I'll probably move on to another flower. For now, I'm still happy with painting the poppies. Now I'm taking my paper towel and I'm wiping off that area of blue that I thought was too solid. It looked too heavy to me and kind of just jumping out at me. So I'm going to go back over that. And a lot of times if you wipe off the painting, I always use Bounty paper towels. I like that brand better because it doesn't get all goopy like other cheaper paper towels when you're trying to pull that paint off. I'll use the cheap stuff in my house, but not when I paint. So I'm just kind of going light to dark here and making sure I have enough contrast in each piece. That middle section right there seems a little too light. I think I might have to go back to that, but it's getting there.